Welcome back to Bass Fishing Dive Bar. Today we've got Brooks Woodward, and we got a fun episode today. Some interesting stories. We're going to talk about the ASA, what it is, and what they do. We got the state of the industry, and we're going to tell a story. Well, Brooks is going to tell a story about the Ben Parker spoon and how that whole thing got started. How you doing, Brooks?
Doing great, man. Thank you guys for having me on. Just having met you has been really fun catching up, and obviously known Kurt for a really long time.
Yeah, same here. So, Kurt, how you been? Yeah.
Yeah, 32 inches of snow. 32 inches of snow. That's how I've been.
Dude,
and you know how hot it is in my garage right now?
Yeah,
it's 92 degrees in here. It's 97
It was 91
outside.
on Sunday. Yeah, it was 91 here on Sunday. We did hit the 30s this week. We had a cold front come in, but Kurt, you don't have to live up there. I don't understand it. Nobody has to live up there.
Yeah.
He likes shoveling shit, apparently.
I broke my plow. Broke my V-plow. Moving snow.
I'll never forget one of my friends in the industry. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Spectrum Metal Finishing. They're a vendor of mine, and they're really dear friends. They're in Minnesota. Some of them came, a couple folks that work there, Dondra, came and visited us in Georgia. She was looking at our house. She's like, "Where's your furnace?" I was like, "What are you talking about? I don't even know what a furnace is. What do you do with a furnace?" She was like, "Where do you keep your ice scrapers with your car?" We don't have ice. There is no ice on our cars. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, we got, depending on where you are, you had anywhere from basically 20 inches to 32 inches. So most of the place that got 32 inches was north of here. But we got started Saturday night, and then it snowed heavy. We had 20 inches here. Then the wind picked up and had everything cleared out and everything on Sunday, and the wind blew gusts to 47 on Monday, and we had 8-foot drifts. I mean, both of you have been to my place. Imagine 8-foot drifts across that road. Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, move south.
Yeah, seriously.
The whole rest of the year, the whole rest of the year, I don't think we ever got 6 inches of snow in one fall. Not once.
Surprise.
Yep, surprise, middle of March.
Yep.
Well, that was 6 years ago. We got 32 inches here the middle of April.
Yeah, that sucks, man. I'm just telling you, they make air conditioning now. You can live down here. So I don't know, man.
I got an air conditioner in my fifth wheel. You can move into that.
I'm not moving to your state.
Yeah, I know. I want to move out. That's for damn sure.
Matt will find your house.
I want to go to Tennessee.
Dude,
but we're not moving the kids. We're not moving the kids away from the grandparents. It's not happening.
You can't do that. Yeah.
No. As expensive as it is to live out here, it's be a good financial move. That's for dang sure. But I'm not moving away from the family.
You have to convince everybody to move. That's the problem.
Problem is,
I think my parents would go, but her parents wouldn't probably. But
yeah,
there's a few places out there.
My parents already bought a house in Missouri and then sold it. My mom doesn't have a problem buying properties out of state and trying things out. Neither does my dad.
Is your mom or your dad from Ohio though?
My dad's from Ohio. Yeah. They had a house in Ohio, sold that. Bought a house in Missouri, sold that.
Okay, so if you were going to go anywhere in the country and you were going to bring your family with you, where are you going?
Right now, probably Tennessee.
I mean, I think that's a pretty good bet. They're North Alabama.
Very central. Yeah. Very central. There's a lot of fishing around. No sales tax.
I was in Arizona.
No income tax.
Yeah, no income tax. I was in Arizona recently, and I will say we're basically in Florida. If you're talking about two places to retire, tons of retirees in Florida, tons in Arizona. I'm convinced the only people that retire in Florida are the ones that haven't moved to Arizona. I don't understand. There's no such thing as swamp butt in Arizona. Like, it's perfect. There's no humidities. There's no tornadoes. There's no hurricanes. I don't know what people are waiting on. Arizona. You got Lake Havasu there. Copper State Tackle. Shout out.
We can't hear you.
How about now?
That's good.
Okay.
It's that
Yeah,
collared shirt.
I know. I was thinking I should have worn a T-shirt. I'll stay really still.
You could be a statue the whole episode.
I
All
got
for
you.
audio.
You turned sideways like that. I didn't even recognize you without the beard. You're like, who is that?
Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm incognito.
Stealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the introduction,
Oh,
we
man.
didn't really say who Brooks is. So Brooks,
You're
why don't you
right.
tell us who you are?
I totally dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah, you
Okay,
did.
sure. Yeah.
Let me redo the introduction. Today we got Brooks Woodward, owner of Dirty Jigs Tackle and Nichols Lures.
There you
Nailed
go.
it. Nailed it.
How was that for first try? Total
I thought that
fail
was
on
pretty
my
good.
part.
I thought that was pretty good.
That's it. That's why I was sitting there speechless. I was waiting for you to continue, and you're looking at me. I'm like, you didn't prep me that I had to give the intro. I never give the intro.
Well, Kurt, did I tell you too? Like, so now you can add another thing to my resume. Me and a buddy opened a golf simulator club.
You did tell me about that.
Yeah, because like I'm just the guy that does hobby stuff. Like,
Yeah.
First it was fishing. People enjoy doing that. Now it's a little bit of golf. Like, I just, I'm only interested in hobby businesses.
Well, you're definitely interested in hobbies, and your number one hobby is working too much.
My employees would probably disagree with that. My wife would agree with that, but my employees might disagree.
Every time I talk to him, and it's not that often. And when we do, though, it always gets lengthy, and it's always like, "You're doing what now? What are you? What's going on?"
I mean, it's mostly like staring at Excel spreadsheets. It's boring stuff. I mean,
Yeah, you like that stuff, though.
I do. Like, my job is not super fun. I mean, it was way more fun when I was in the beginning and like actually making baits. That was more enjoyable. Now like my job is data analysis and inventory forecasting and PO placement, accounts receivable. Like, it's not anything fun. I have been doing some fun stuff lately. I mean, we can get off on like an AI tangent, but there are some really cool tools out there. Like Kurt, you would just like I feel like you could see this coming from a mile away. I started using this AI app generator to build like an internal production system.
I am shocked. I'm
Dude.
just shocked that you have figured out how to do that.
It's so cool. It's wild now, the stuff that you can do. Like, basically any software that you have bought in the last few years, like we're never going to buy software again. So don't worry about it. You can save your money and spend it on fish and tackle because we're never having to buy software ever again, period. So just know that's coming. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I do on a daily basis.
You and I need to have a conversation about AI.
Oh, anytime. I love it, man. I'm
Anytime.
all over it.
So getting a hold of you is the hardest thing to do.
It is.
And then
How
you
old
got
are you, Kurt?
I hate AI.
44.
I don't know if there's anything that I hate more than AI right now.
Now I gotta ask though, is it that you hate the AI like slop, or you just like hate the idea of like?
No, I like the idea, but the idea never works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It screws
I mean,
every
I'm
single
with you,
thing
like,
I've tried.
He's
Yeah,
struggling
like,
with it.
the AI
He
slop
struggles
is
with it.
awful. There's no doubt that it's like got a lot of terrible things, especially in, like I said, if you're not really on social media, like I don't really get much of that. And I mean, I'd say it's only within the last like 6 months that AI is actually proving useful in real business scenarios.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
So, you know
camera.
what I compare it to? I've got a 7, about to be 5, and about to be 4-year-old.
mhm.
I compare it to me having to tell them to pick up their toys or wipe their nose 40 times to having to plug the same thing in 50 times to get the result that I wanted to get.
Yeah,
It's having
that-
another
that's-
child
that's not that far off.
that I
but,
don't
like,
want.
Not. It's not.
Here's what I love though. Okay, so like this app generator that I'm using, like custom manufacturing software is pretty expensive. I mean, you're talking about like, okay, so in 1 week, I have built out an app for our internal use that I know 2 years ago would have probably cost me 40,000 plus to have a developer build. And I've done it for $40 on a monthly subscription and like typing some stuff in. And it works, like it's good. It sucks, like you said, like you have to really keep screwing with it, but it's finally kind of starting to pay off a little bit. But yeah, I'm with you. There's just as many terrible things about it.
I found it really matters how you give it the information, how you tell it what to do. Adam is not good at telling it what to do. I understand why his kids don't listen.
Well, and it's like, it's always going to have a bias to agree with you. Like, if all you're doing is asking ChatGPT questions, like we were joking earlier today in the office, like you could be like, hey, I just murdered my boyfriend. And it could be like, oh, don't worry, Joe. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, here's steps 1 through 5 that you can do to start getting over this. Like, it's just always going to feel like what you did was probably okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like if I told my kids, hey, go pick up your toys. You would like me to put them in the toilet? No. I want you to put them where they belong.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Over and over and over and over again.
Well, and we're definitely living in the worst part of it too, where like every single company is like introducing some AI thing that nobody asked for. And they don't even do anything, but like they have to say for their shareholders that they were using AI. So that's what they're doing. So I don't know. I get it. It sucks, but I do kind of love some of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think
once you figure it out, it's worthwhile.
And hear me say too, I think it's going to be good for the fishing industry. Like seriously, we're talking about like, I don't know how long it's going to take, but I don't know if you guys are seeing these interviews with like Jamie Dimon. It's like the Chase Bank, CEO. I mean, we're talking about realistically, maybe working towards like a 3-day work week. I mean, there's real potential that this kind of stuff can. Generally, there's like short-term pain. Anytime there's like some big technology leap, there's short-term pain because people get displaced. But standard of living usually increases and luxury time usually increases. And like I'm all for luxury time increasing. The more time people got to fish. If they're only working 3 days a week, they might fish 5 days a week. I mean, that doesn't quite add up to 7, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty good to me. So I do think we're in an industry that really will like benefit long term. Maybe some of the guys that do it a lot are going to get displaced and have some hard times for a little while, but ultimately, if we get more leisure time, hey man, we're going to sell more fishing lures.
I think technology as a whole, both in, I shoot trap with a bunch of rednecks, and 3 of them have 3D printers.
Yeah.
Like 10 years ago, no one had a 3D printer.
Mm-hmm.
And guys are self-taught, can do some decent stuff on it. You take somebody that's under the age of 25. They've got more experience with CAD and that type of stuff in school, and then you start adding AI to this. I think in the fishing industry, from just that aspect, you're gonna see a lot of evolution of product at a
I agree.
quick rate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think so too. I think that's a good way to look at it.
I mean, unless everybody just keeps using a jig head and a Quakey.
I mean, dude, there's no way we don't see at ICAST in the next 2 years, like AI integrated live scope, where it like, it not only do you see the image, but through AI, it identifies the fish for you because you don't quite know how to read it just yet. Like, there's no way that's not coming.
I love those AI generated pictures that have been bouncing around with the live scope right on the reel.
Right.
But I can like imagine if you had something like, how long did it take you guys, like when you first got side scan or something? Like how long did it take to get to where you like knew you were looking at a bass. Like that was an acquired skill.
Yeah.
And there's just go ahead.
I was fortunate that I got to learn with Canterbury.
Yeah.
You and I were out in the boat with a guy that, to my understanding, that was so long time ago, so I might be not remembering this correctly, but it was my understanding that it was the guy that drove around and did the mapping for Lake Master on the Coosa and the Tennessee River and stuff. So we got to see hummingbirds and Lawrences and what was what. And we did it on Gunnersville. So he's like, these are catfish. You can see the halo around them. Pull up on a spot. He's like, those are drum. We call them sheephead, but drum. Pull up on another spot. Them are bass. So you get that where you make a cast, you catch it, that's what it is. It's such a short learning curve. So if you got someone that can do that with you, whether it's forward-facing sonar or side imaging or down imaging or even 2D, it's easy to pick up. But when you go out there chasing your tail all by yourself and you're like, especially now where back then it was like side imaging, look, you maybe wouldn't get as much detail with one versus the other, but the returns all look somewhat similar.
Yeah.
And when you start playing with the water clarity, what stuff looks like and what I got to set my gains to and everything, in northern Wisconsin versus Lake Winnebago versus down south. I mean,
some truly next level stuff that really does separate guys. But I think now, like, there's no way there's not going to be some setting that just like, oh, you want us to throw a literal X on your screen when we see a bass with our AI model? Like, that's this kind of stuff AI is going to get really good at it. You just feed it a million pictures of bass and done. So I don't know.
It's gonna be able to tell you the size of, probably next year it'll be able to tell you the size of fish.
Yeah.
That's not honestly, that hard to do.
Maybe we don't need to release this because we need to start like launching this idea on our own, because if Lawrence and Hummingbird don't do this, they're insane. So they can have that for free.
They're good. I want to see the size of that box. You're right on the water, so water cooling it'll be easy.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know what servers they're going to be pulling all that data out of. Somewhere in San Diego, I'm sure.
Oh no, they're building them, trying to build them all over Wisconsin.
I mean, yeah, it's cold up there. Makes sense.
Right? Yeah. They should put them in North Dakota. There's a lot of room.
All right, let's get on one of the topics that we were planning on talking about. ASA. What is the ASA?
Yeah, sure. So, as Kurt and I were talking about things leading up to this, so the ASA is an organization that I'm part of that Kurt was a little bit curious about, and I think a lot of listeners would be, stands for the American Sport Fishing Association. Broad strokes, it is the recreational sport fishing's lobbying arm and manufacturers group. I'd say it was probably, I don't know the full history, probably started in the late 50s, early 60s when sport fishing, for recreation, like really became a thing. Like anything, you had probably a small number of manufacturers at the time that came together and said, hey, like our voices are worth more when we put them together. So they formed a manufacturers group. That led into a lot of other things that we can get into, but essentially what the SA does now is they really do, I'd say three things. They are responsible for putting on ICAST, which is, the International Sport Fishing Trade Show that everybody goes to and all the media talks about and all the new product releases happen. That's probably their most, what they're most known for. That's the most public facing event, even though it's closed to the public. Folks like Tackle Warehouse for a long time now are bringing us inside of that. They also have what's called like an R3 branch, which is really interested in, it's like Keep America Fishing. They focus a lot of their time and energy on, for our manufacturers that are members of our group, how do we increase the size of the industry? How do we grow the sport? How do we get more anglers that are interested? How do we keep anglers, and how do we find anglers that left and maybe now we want to get them back? So they have a big, that's called an R3 branch, recruitment, retention, reactivation. And then their third and maybe most important, but probably most undervalued or undersold would be their lobbying arm. And so they have full-time lobbyists, both in Washington and Tallahassee and other major fishing states that are working with lawmakers every day for sport fishing's benefit. There are certain topics with lobbying that kind of suck all the energy out of the room. And I'll be honest, like I'm in the bass fishing industry. That's not really, bass fishing isn't something of main concern when you're talking about lobbying in Washington. But sport fishing in general, I mean, you're talking about, speed limit proposals off the Atlantic coast for right whales. You're talking about snapper seasons and harvest limits, which are really contentious. And really what they're battling when they're doing those kinds of things, like, you guys may be familiar with, a place like Washington State. I mean, yeah, you're in California. There are so many times when those lawmakers, even state agencies that were supposed to be maybe based on science, based on populations, based on harvest records, there are some agencies in certain states that are supposed to, be making decisions, at a high level based on science. Well, if they become partisan in their appointments, that can change in a hurry. And all of a sudden you get a governor that's, maybe a little bit more interested in, animal right type stuff. Before you know it, the head of your state agency that makes harvest records, or harvest limits, is somebody that's kind of against harvest at all. Like those things are real; they're happening.
Politics running it.
Yeah, you look in some of these northeastern or northwestern states where like a good place to look at it is you talk about when bear hunting gets outlawed. Nobody likes the thought of killing a bear. Well, okay, but if we don't control that population, what happens? We increase interactions with the human population. Nobody likes that because then the bear's got to get killed anyway.
That's mountain lions here. You haven't been able to hunt mountain lions since the 80s in California.
Yes. And really, I do think like I'm generally not a big fan of like slippery slope arguments, but I do think in these cases like they're very real. And so it's something that we need as manufacturers. We have an economic interest. Not only economic though, like almost everybody that's in the industry is also, it's a way of life. Like we love to fish. And so selfishly, like it's an economic interest, but also like I want to make sure that I can keep fishing and that my kids can keep fishing forever and that we guarantee that. And these lobbyists are on the ground providing real information backed by science so that when we start talking about, again, a good example of this is like snapper fishing. Hey, like we show that the populations are pretty healthy, but we're not increasing harvest limits. Why not? Why can't we go? Why is it that it's a 3-day whatever? I don't know the details of snapper fishing, but like that's a real thing that's happening. Sharking has been really controversial. I'm sure you guys see the news. Like I'm near Florida, and shark interactions are like gigantically increasing. Not just with swimmers, but like as it concerns fishing. When surveyed, a lot of saltwater anglers will say that, hey, like one reason that maybe I don't fish as much anymore is I'm tired of losing my catch to sharks. Like it gets old. Sharking is not a thing that people can do anymore commercially. For better or worse, I know that there are, probably good reasons that, it was not a good thing, but one of the impacts is that now we've got like an exploding shark population. They're going to make fishing less enjoyable. That may mean that fishing license sales decline, and as a result, I'm going to sell less fishing tackle. So I need somebody, in the state capitol talking about those things. And so, that's really what the ASA stands to do. The main thing that they're there to do is to make sure that state governments are properly spending our excise tax dollars as well. So, very quickly, like an overview of the system that we've got in the U.S. The SA was really crucial in establishing this, but it's something called the Sport Fishing Restoration Act, or the Dingell-Johnson Act. I can't remember the year, probably 60s. Again, I'm shooting off the hip a little bit with the history, but this was a tax program created. Essentially, it's a user tax. Any fishing tackle I sell, I pay a portion of that to the government. And that money isn't just there's a big difference here in where that tax money goes. It's not just going to the government in a slush fund, and hopefully they budget it properly so that we see results from it in fishing. I believe the term that they would use is it's earmarked for conservation and natural resources. And what that means, that word earmarked is a more specific term that means the money cannot be used for anything else, which is very important, right? Like, it's hard to feel like the government's going to do a great job spending our money on anything. And we'd hate to think that our money went, instead of going to pay for boat ramp access, went, to pay for God knows what. But that's not how this tax works. That money is specifically earmarked for conservation spending, habitat re-improvement. So usually the way that it works in reality, and there's also a piece where oil companies in the Gulf and in other places also have to pay into this tax. That was part of the deal. Like, hey, if you're going to drill and you're going to impact this natural resource, we're going to take a pound out of you so that we can make sure that we're refilling it. So all those monies, they come together. Usually it stays within the state that it's paid, is my understanding. It's a federal tax, but most of the time that money is kept within the state. And the state will go, if a great example of how this has worked in real life, locally, we had a gun range built probably 6 or 7 years ago. It was built with matching funds from the excise tax. And so, like, what a better way, like a good example in fishing would be more like a boat ramp, a public boat access. Usually those projects are funded either in part or full with excise tax money. Well, I know one thing that I really want is for my customers to have easy access to public fishing water. And when they go, I want to make sure there's fish to catch. And so a lot of the money goes towards hatchery efforts. Like in North Georgia, for where I am, that looks a lot more like brown trout, things that are a little bit more at risk, instead of largemouth bass. But all that money is going to support that conservation. And if we cut that off, like, hey, if the natural resource suffers, my sales are going to suffer. And that's not what we want. And so all that to say, part of what the ASA is doing is they're following that trail. They're making sure that, excise tax money is spent in a wise way. It's the manufacturer's money. We want to make sure that it's spent well. And so that's part of what they're there to do. So hopefully that's like a good, 30,000 level view of the ASA and why I think it's important.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's a great explanation.
No, it is. And it's something, you got, groups, everybody's familiar with Ducks Unlimited, everybody's, especially Western hunters, like you said earlier when we were talking about it, they're familiar with the Pittman-Robertson Act and what that does.
Yeah. And we've often thought about how to take advantage of this. One thing that truthfully, like, I struggle with is we went to an ASA summit maybe 3 years ago, and I actually got pretty bent out of shape because they had folks on the stage from, so at this point, the ASA still exists as a manufacturers group, but it has expanded outside of just fishing tackle manufacturers. So now you do have some large apparel companies that are members. You've got some media that are members, et cetera. If they're tangentially related to fishing, they can join the ASA. The problem I have with that is they're not all paying the excise tax. So they had a big panel from some apparel companies, like, that everybody here knows, and the executives were sitting on stage telling all of us manufacturers how we could better donate to conservation. And it really rubbed me the wrong way, because I was sitting in the audience thinking, like, hey, cool, Patagonia got to advertise that they donated $50 million to conservation, but they don't pay the excise tax. Because we are paying a tax that's levied on us, it's not as marketable. We don't get a PR stunt out of paying our taxes, but they're going for the same efforts. Like they are supporting the same work. And you know me, Kurt. So I mean, I raised my hand and kind of, said a few things about it. It's just like, hey, you're telling me how to spend all this extra money that we got from profit. We already do that. And so I just like, it's hard to market and educate our consumers. I've even tried to promote that, to me, like I think on every single ASA member's packaging, there should be a mark and a stamp that says like, I am a member of the ASA. That means I pay excise taxes and I'm supporting conservation. And the only way that I can use that mark is if I'm doing that. And all of a sudden consumers are going to start connecting the dots, hey, this guy that makes his jigs down the corner, they may be $1 cheaper, but it's because he's not paying into conservation. What is he doing for conservation?
Right.
And so, when you tell your customers that they're paying a tax that increases their cost, they don't like it. And so nobody talks about it. But man, it's such a good thing. I mean, I had lunch a couple years ago with Scott Robinson, who's the Georgia Department of Natural Resources fisheries head. And man, just to hear like the work that they're doing, that our excise tax dollars are supporting, man, like we need that to be done. And unfortunately, if you rely on donations, it may not get done as well. So
that's it. It's unique for me to hear. I mean, you have a little more insight because of belonging to the ASA and understanding it, so you probably look more, but it's unique to hear how you can see where that work and where that money's, where that funnels. I've never heard that in my state. Adam, you've never heard.
Well, a lot of it is work hidden behind the scenes. So like I know one thing that we did that was really fun. We did a thing where like through this Scott Robinson relationship that I developed, we kind of said like, hey, look, we pay into this tax and we know what it's going to. I don't know that our employees have any idea. Do you have any opportunities for us to come join you guys? They invited us and we went to Lake Seminole, 45 minutes west of here. And we had 10 or 12 employees go out there and do some electric shock studies and some gill netting alongside DNR employees to see like, oh, like this is what we're contributing towards. Like, this is why this matters. Mm-hmm. Even like, I don't know if you guys have something that would be equivalent to like a Jigs day, which down where I am, the DNR will put on a huge spring deal where there's like fishing lessons, fishing equipment, little BB gun shooting competitions, archery. Like the idea is let's get as many people in this community together to be in the outdoors as possible. And that's what our money is going towards. Yeah. But you have to look for it. It's not in your face. I would have never known about any of those things, I don't think. So it's easy to show up to the boat ramp and back your boat in and have no real understanding of how it got there or why we have nice, clean water with fish in them. But, it's all orchestrated on purpose, and they're not making any more of it, and we've got to be really careful with it.
Right. How do you know how much that is? Do you know how much that money, whether it's Pittman Robinson money or from the fishing side of things, do you know how that's controlled when it goes, or how is it intended to be controlled once it goes to the states? So
like I said, it's earmarked. And then different projects I know require different approvals. I wish I had talked to Scott before this to have a better understanding. A lot of times it's matching funds. Yeah. So like, if they're doing a boat ramp, they may try to raise money, but at the same, all that money will be matched with excise tax funding. And then, my understanding is each state receives a portion of the big pool. Mm-hmm. I can't remember what the criteria is. It's probably some combination of fishing license sales, population as a whole, and money, brought in from manufacturers in that state.
Yeah.
But it's a federal tax, and then it's divvied up between all the states.
Yeah.
And the administration cost, from what I can tell, is very low. I mean, dude, there's nonprofits that are running a 30% admin fee on every dollar you give. They're spending 30 cents of it just to administer it. I think this stuff's pretty clean.
Yeah.
So no, they do a very good job with it. And it is, in my opinion, the best model in the world. I think what people forget often, and I think this ties in a little bit with what we're talking about. You mentioned earlier, like, people can own land, but it's harder for them to connect water. Public waterways are in the public trust.
Yeah.
What that means is you're an owner, I'm an owner, you're an owner. By one whatever of our population is, like, I am that percentage of an owner in every piece of public waterways. The same thing is true about the populations of species in those waters. The reason that we have like a limit is because those fish, even if they're on your private property, aren't your fish. I own a part of that fish. You own a part of that fish. You own a part of that fish. Like, all this stuff is held in the public trust. Like, we are owners of these things. That's as part of being citizens of the U.S. And we've got to be good stewards of it. But it takes a lot of money and a lot of work.
See, here in San Diego, I look at things a little bit differently because they are different. We don't own anything. All of our lakes are on city of San Diego land. They're all public. They're all water storage reservoirs. The city owns the water.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost more for like infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it is it's a privilege to be able to fish these lakes, and they treat it that way. Mm-hmm. We have two lakes that we can actually fish tournaments on here out of, we used to have 6 or 7 because they've deemed almost all of our dams compromised. So they've dropped the water levels to the point where there are no ramps in the water anymore, except for 2 of our lakes. And yeah, I'm not seeing, the picture that everybody else is seeing, because
I
I'm
totally
in a
get
corner
that.
here that,
Well, and what would be really interesting is to know, again, and I'm not saying the system is perfect. I'm just saying it probably is the best in the world when you're comparing, other countries.
Well, your system probably has nothing to do with our city, because our city doesn't even,
right.
It is totally separate from where that money will go.
Well, my curiosity would be like, sure, my hope would be, but I don't know. For those bodies of water, are excise taxes allowed to be used? Is excise tax, I don't know. And the other question is, again, like, what is California, like the 5th biggest economy in the world? Like, you got to know they're taking a heavy portion of any tax that gets divided up amongst the states. But it is a state that I would consider probably at risk for responsible, use of the money. I think that's probably fair to say. I don't have any relationships there, and I may be speaking out of turn.
If it's going to anywhere legitimate, it's probably going up into the Eastern Sierras with all the trout and national forests and stuff like that. So
right. But again, it is good news. Like, I still think the good news is that it is earmarked money. The government doesn't just get this money and shuffle it all around, and then before you know it, that's paying for one missile that gets sent overseas, right? Like, it's not like that. It is very specific money set aside for these purposes.
That's why I was asking about the states, because there's a lot of disagreement about what conservation looks like amongst people, and it's like you said, when stuff starts getting ran bipartisanly, and we're going to do this and like, is some of that money being used as much to keep us from accessing water, having access to fish and stuff?
I know if the ASA has anything to do with it, the answer would be no.
Right.
They have, I wish I could think of them off the top of my head, and man, Mike Leonard is going to be pissed at me that I can't. But they have some pillars of like, here's what we stand for. And it's essentially like, we stand for having, clean water, access to that clean water, and fish swimming in that clean water. Like, there are some really clear pillars that, like, if the ASA is involved, like, that's what we're after. And they all three work together. But that's why I think the ASA is important. Otherwise, no one manufacturer has any outsized voice. It's funny how you can see how now modern institutions were started, right? Like a bunch of guys like us that just said, hey man, what if we have like one group and we all put some money together and we hired somebody to go talk to somebody on our behalf. And that's really what this stuff is. Again, we could talk about how maybe the association, I think, is, a little too broad now. If it was up to me, and it's not, it would mostly be comprised of those actually paying excise taxes. I don't like the thought of people without as much of a vested interest, in that group. But, hey, the more the merrier. The more voices that we have that care about the resources, the better.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the slippery slope with the excise tax for me, because obviously I paid it for years, was always you get told, well, the customers pay for it. Well, the customers do pay for it, right? It's sure. Money that the customers gave me to, and then somebody's telling me I got to take portion of that. Well, I only get to charge what the market can bear.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's where I struggle with, like, there's not as an even policing. And so that's why we talked about earlier, like, it does suck that now you, who is being responsible and you're paying the tax on the tackle, store shelf, you may be competing against, we talked about this, like Billy Bob down the road in his garage building jigs.
Yeah.
He ain't going to get audited because he's just selling to like 2 tackle stores.
Yeah.
But because he doesn't pay an excise tax, he can charge 60 cents less than I can.
Right.
Oh, that sucks,
Yeah.
So no, and look, I mean, talking about, if you guys want to get into tariffs, I mean, same thing, right? Like they get passed on to the consumer, kind of, but all I know is I'm the one stroking the checks.
Yeah. Yeah. And usually when the price goes up, you just sell less.
Right.
So no one's really winning.
Yeah. Well, and what I continue to worry about, I mean, I know this is off topic, but like, tariffs in particular, I'm not worried about necessarily like everybody's price is going to, like, we're all impacted in the same way. So everybody's price is going to rise. I worry more about, we do exist in a luxury market. I mean, you could argue maybe that fishing is recession proof because it's just a way of life, but let's get real. Like $6, $7 jigs, that's a luxury item. Fishing as a way of life is grabbing some worms out of your old dirt and going and fishing for subsistence.
Yeah.
Like what we're marketing towards is a luxury.
Yeah. So
what worries me more than anything is, at what point does that luxury become too expensive for the average American? I don't know. That's what's scary.
I think you're seeing some kickback on that right now, which is, look at boat sales.
Oh man, yeah.
And I know you've been around long enough. I've seen it, the ebb and flow of it. Everybody's buying high-end rods. Everybody's buying new boats. Everybody's buying high-end reels. And then it swings back down. But you know what? Whether they buy a $100 rod or a $500 rod, they still need something tied to the end of it. So when you're making the tackle itself or you're making the line, you're sort of sheltered to a lot of that. I mean, there's a buffer there for sure.
I don't disagree. Yeah, guys are always going to need baits. I guess I would say but the most recession-proof bait is a cork and a single hook, right? Like,
have you bought night crawlers lately?
Right. Well, that's.
You should hear the guys up here walleye fishing complaining about the crawlers and the minnows.
Oh man, I can only imagine. But no,
those aren't the guys getting on eBay to buy corkies.
No, they're not getting on eBay to buy corkies. My Quakey hookup actually called here a little bit. If you heard my phone buzzing before,
tell him to send me some. I need them.
Oh, I texted him the other day. I'm like, I need to order some. He's like, I can get you one.
Send it to me.
No, you.
I got a tournament in about 3 weeks.
Oh, you're on your own.
What a world.
And you know who I'm talking
Dude,
about.
it's nuts.
Like if he can't get them,
Oh, yeah.
if Matt can't get them,
I mean, I give him whatever he wants. So,
yeah. So,
well, I don't know if any of that, you want to kind of lead into a conversation on the industry as a whole, but, we certainly can do that if you want to.
yeah.
Well, we talked about state of the industry. The tariffs are part of that. The economical part of it is part of that. So let's
I mean, you could talk about look at the price of those baits. Well, granted, I mean, I live in Toothy Critter Land.
Go right into it from the koi key.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Toothy Critter Land. Adam and I just talked about this the other day, and I'm like, I'm not even ordering any.
Yeah.
He's like, well, just order one. Just get one. I'm like, I'll make one cast. And we fondly refer to those northern pike as snot rockets. And it's going to take the dang bait.
Yeah.
And there I sit, all my knowledge, tying a wacky rig Senko back on.
It just never fails.
On that.
Yeah.
But after the experience that I had the other day on the water, I would be willing to take 3 or 4 of them with me up there and sacrifice that because of the potential of what happened.
Well, yeah.
The thing is freaking real.
Yeah.
Like real.
It's showing up on enough top 10s. It has to be.
Yeah.
I have never seen fish react to a lure like they've never seen a fishing lure in their life, the way that they did with this. It's stupid. And there was no forward-facing sonar involved whatsoever.
That's even more fun, yeah.
I've heard from a ton of people that they're not even using it with forward-facing sonar. They're just something different.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous the way that they act to this bait. That's going to change. They're going to get conditioned to it. But right now, wow, is all I can say. It's crazy.
That's it. When drop shotting first got big on the bay, you could 2D smallmouth, right? Because we didn't have anything else. You'd mark them, you'd throw your tube out, and they'd fall out right to the bottom. As soon as they hit bottom, they'd leave. And when you took somebody in your boat, the first time you ever had that going on, and somebody had a drop shot tied up, and that bait fell fast to the bottom but stopped a foot short, they ate it every time. Like they'd never seen a bait do that before, They were like, this is the most fun in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now it's like you got to give them something different. You got to give them something that goes to the bottom or never goes to the bottom. One of the two, because they're conditioned.
Or you got to hold it there in one spot for 3 minutes while they do circles around it and finally grab the thing.
Yeah. I mean, I do like state of the industry wise. Like, I do worry just about like where innovation could possibly go next. Like, I just don't see it. There's not been, we talked about it, a little bit earlier, Kurt. Like, I don't know. I mean, products are getting pretty boring.
They are.
And I mean, I'm part of that. Like, I get it, but if you look at like, we're all responsible not just for creating baits but selling them, and new ideas only rarely sell well.
Right.
I mean, we'll talk about that with the spoon later, but like that's kind of like lightning in a bottle. And what sells well is stuff that's already selling, or iterations of what's already selling. And I just think we're at a point right now where like, man, it's just boring. How many different minnows can we make? How many jig heads can we make? Like a minnow is a minnow.
So that's where I've heard the argument so many times about bass fishing is unwatchable because of forward-facing sonar. It's not that I'm looking at a guy's back for hours on live. That's not what gets me. It's that it's always the jig head minnow. Every single time. We're not used to that. We're used to KVD throwing the crank out on Kentucky Lake and smashing them. We're used to him going down on Amistad and throwing the 12-inch, man's jelly worm, or Brower flipping the jig. It's always something different. And now, literally, almost every single tournament is a jig head minnow. There is no deviation from that.
And think about how interesting these man, these tournaments on TVA used to be, where like these ledge fests, and watching guys like cycle through baits. Like dude, that doesn't exist anymore. But like the science and art of like oh man, first cast at this school is going to be with this, and if they won't bite that, I'm moving down here, and we end up at the drop shot of the Carolina rig, but like that's like 8 baits down the list, and man, it's just like way more boring now.
Well, I think there's still that bait process that people do, especially if they're more spot oriented with the forward facing sonar. If they're chasing roamers, it seems to be 2-3 baits, but if they're fishing a spot and they got groups of fish, they definitely seem to cycle through different stuff. But I think the diversity of those items is not as much.
Yeah.
And when you got, nowadays you have 9 out of top 10 doing something that's not that. We used to, like you said, you could watch a tournament and whether Kevin was running away with it or Hackney or whoever the heck it was, you had a guy cranking, and then they take the camera to the next guy and he's flipping. They take the camera to the next guy and he's frogging or drop shot. And he always had, like, back when Aaron Martins was around, like, you never knew what he was going to do, so you always got to see a different aspect.
I mean, think about a guy like Brian Thrift, like that guy, like he's just junk fishing, and that's just, I don't know, man. That's what's fun to watch.
Spinnerbait. Yeah. You never knew what he was going to do.
Right.
Yeah. When I get to, like, it does take away from, I think, part of what's kind of quintessential in fishing. Like, think about it, man. We've all been here, right? Like, maybe you just caught one on a crankbait, and you throw it another couple times, and you know that if you throw it long enough, you'll probably catch another one. But there's part of your brain that's like, I wonder if I could catch him on the hair jig. Yeah. Like, and then you do that a couple of times, man, but like, I wonder if I could catch one on the spoon. Like, and even if you've already caught one on another thing, there's this part of your brain that's really fun that, like, keeps wanting to try something different. Yeah. And so I do think, like, this jig head minnow trend, it's maybe the difference is, like, is it just as satisfying to say, oh man, I just caught one on a 3-inch armor shad, like, wonder if I could catch one on a 6-inch. I mean, there's some of that going on. But yeah, to me, it's not as satisfying.
Yeah, the technique's still the same, right? Whether it's a 5-aught hook guppy head and a 7-inch minnow, or a 1-aught one with a 3.5-inch minnow, it's the same technique.
And hear me say, like, I mean nothing against the guys that are really good at it. Like, it is a skill that can be developed, and the guys that are good at it have a legitimate skill. Like, I'm not one of these guys that's just like, oh, it just makes everything easy, and you're not even having to try. Like, whatever, dude, forget it.
Come in the boat with me last fall when I was smallmouth fishing, marked them all over the place, and you still couldn't get them to bite.
Right, like that. There's still a real skill involved. I just mean, we talked some about, like, the entertainment value of live bass fishing, or just bass fishing as a whole. Like, I mean, part of what was fun about Bassmaster magazine when I was getting into it was, every one you read is going to have, like, a new technique that you've never even dreamed of before.
Yeah. And,
like, some new bait that I want to go to the tackle store and buy now because I read an article about it or saw somebody using it. I think all of us that like to fish, like, part of what we like is learning something new. And that's why we love innovative baits. Like, we get to learn a new way to catch a fish.
Yeah.
And we've caught thousands of fish. Like, we could keep catching the same way we've been doing it, but we love to learn something new.
Yeah.
And I just think this is reduced, like, how often that's happening. Like we talked about, man, it's still super fun to go catch them on forward facing. It is.
Yeah.
But yeah, from an entertainment value standpoint, like, I'm a fan of bass fishing. Man, I didn't watch much last year. And I know I'm not alone, but, like, I don't know.
I'm
like
with
you.
Said,
yeah, or, like, as a bait manufacturer, I'll be honest, and I know these elite guys and other guys are picking up on this, and they're not going to like it, but it's true. Top 10 articles, man, that's the only thing I care about as a bait manufacturer. I mean, yeah, we get the occasional shout out in some magazines. That stuff is really good. But what's really, really good is immediately post-tournament, top 10 article, click through link to buy your product that they were using.
Yep.
Well, now if it's just like, homemade jig head and minnow, like I've gotten on. I'll be honest. Like I have gotten on to some guys, in the journalism space of bass fishing because like their top 10 articles suck now. Like, don't let these guys get away with this. Like, what you're going to tell me it was an unnamed jig? Like, I don't even think it was mine. But like, do your job and find out what it was. Like, that's what we're here to find out. And I just think these guys are going to realize, like, as the entertainment value declines. I mean, look, their value declines. That's just a reality. It just doesn't move the needle much anymore. It used to be a guy fishing on live, catching stuff, catching fish on your baits was great. It probably doesn't happen as often now because it's jig head minnows. I mean, Crush City, like they're probably doing awesome, right? Like mooch minnows and freeloaders, they're selling the fire out of those suckers. Spunk shads, I mean, dude, yeah, they're selling the fire out of them. But it makes me far less likely to support anglers if like the top 10 article is just not going to include my stuff. I don't know. It's hard to measure value.
What I fear with this whole deal, like I think forward facing sonar from a fishing standpoint is fine. But like you said, people don't want to watch it and this and that. But at the end of the day, just like that excise tax, right? Like the excise tax funds all this stuff. The industry is what funds those tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
These anglers don't want to pay an entry fee, right? They want to win as much money as possible. They want the organizations they fish for to give them as much exposure as that organization can. But that all comes from mostly money that's sponsorship money.
Right.
Well, being from the north, I think I have a unique perspective. You can throw a stone in any direction and you're going to hit a walleye fisherman in the eye. You could throw 100 stones and never hit another bass fisherman. But the bass fishermen outspend the walleye fishermen.
That's probably true. Mm-hmm.
Because I've worked in fishing retail almost my whole life. When you walk into a bait shop up here, the most profitable area in that place is where the night crawlers and minnows are and where the round ball lead jigs are. Because that's almost all them walleye fishermen, that's all they buy. But there's no money there.
Yeah. Well, those are race to the bottom items.
It's a race to the
and you make it.
Yep, race to the bottom items, and there's only so much room for so many brands. And when you lose brands or the brands start making less and less money, like if your sales over the next 5 years dwindle 25%, what happens to your marketing budget? It at least loses 25%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Garmin and Humminbird and all these electronics companies think it's great now because so many people are constantly trying to keep up with the Joneses, get the next new thing. But they can't support the whole industry for forever.
Right. Well, and I still just believe then you end up with an industry that looks more like that walleye industry where like you said, like jig heads, like it's a race to the bottom. There's no brand loyalty. None of it is cool.
Yeah.
And like, that's boring. People want to walk down a crankbait aisle or a jig aisle or a spinnerbait aisle full of cool, unique items.
Yeah.
That's why, like, we're gearheads, man. We love that stuff. And, that's made the bait industry pretty boring and one-dimensional. And that's why I think, like, man, product launches at some of these, recent shows, iCasts and Bassmaster Classics, like, man, I think everybody's just running out of ideas. And as long as forward facing is going to play such a major role, which again, like there's merits for it.
Yeah.
I do think as an entertainment product though, we'd all be better off if it probably went away. You hate to say that. I think everybody's making some good moves to limit it. I'm not one of these guys that's just like anything new can't be allowed. Like that's not me.
Right.
But like, hey, if you're a Bassmaster right now, you need to understand how this is decreasing your entertainment value. You are a media entertainment company.
Yeah.
If your product is less interesting, not only are you not going to do as well, but anybody associated with you, those anglers, like, man, morale, I feel like, is at an all-time low in the professional bass fishing ranks.
Yeah.
And I'm a contributor. Like, it's hard for me to keep spending money with these guys when they don't move the needle anymore.
Yeah. Well, and as people quit watching, it's just going to make it so that on that end they're going to get less sponsorship.
Yeah,
100%.
100%.
You know, if you got 100 people watching your product, you're worth X. If you got 1,000 people watching it, you're worth 10 times X.
Yeah.
You know,
but I'll be honest, like, as a brand, like, man, we can talk marketing. I have some close friends that are professional bass fishermen. We still support professional bass fishermen. We believe in what they're doing to further the sport. But then you talk about a guy like Matt, like, he can go fishing wherever he wants to. He can film a video on any bait he wants to. He doesn't have to worry about winning some tournament and competing with guys. He can make an entertaining product however he wants to. And that's way better for me. Truthfully,
we had a long conversation. Was that with Kyle or was that with Logan? We talked about the value of a coach.
That was with Logan.
And that's where, you know, there's the Scott Canterbury's. You know, Scott's one of my closest friends. But it's different what he does versus what a Matt Allen or Tim Little do.
Yeah.
And I get, you know, at one point in time, there was a lot of validation that was, I'm a professional bass angler, and that's who that was listened to, but the time has changed.
Yeah. I mean, it really has. I mean, and it's funny because there's some of those guys, like, man, like a guy like Canterbury is one of my favorites because, I don't want this to sound the wrong way, but, like, social media, okay, that's fine. But, man, when you see Scott interact with customers in person, there is no denying he's one of the best in the business at it.
Yeah.
And you can see his value. Like, if you walk in Mark's Outdoors and he's in there, man, he's so good with kids. He's so good with young anglers. He's so good at being with people. But there's definitely a subsection of pro fishermen that think they're there because they're really good at catching fish. Yeah. Their job is being really good at catching fish. And you just don't know how to tell them, it's not your job. Like,
that's not all your job. That's not the only thing.
It's
not
if
you want to have a 30-year career. Yeah, I mean, if you want to have a 30-year career, like, you got to get really good at some other things besides catching fish. And, you know, the only reason all that stuff exists really is to help us sell more baits. I mean, the industry decided, like, we're putting money behind this because it helps us market. And if it's not helping us market anymore, payouts can't increase. Like, we can't support more pros.
I used to ruffle feathers when you start having those tough conversations come contract time.
No, it's tough. Yeah.
Oh, you catching a lot of fish makes your real job easier is what I'd always say.
That's a good way to put it. But it's true. And it's hard because I know some of those guys, like, you know, I like that some of bass fishing is a meritocracy. You know, you've got to earn your way on in the Elite Series. Yeah. You're catching fish only. Yeah. But that does mean that there's going to be some guys that get on there that, like, man, yeah, they can catch fish, but that's all they know how to do. And so then they kind of don't do that well. Maybe they'll have some success, but you guys know as well as I do, unfortunately, bass fishing, like, if you're not first, you might as well be last.
Yeah.
Like, the winner is the only one that matters. And so it's just
Ricky
hard.
Bobby.
I mean, yeah, it's true in fishing, though. Like, good Lord.
I mean, really, that top three is about all that's valuable.
Yeah.
You know, as far as moving the needle. Now, if you have someone that's doing something really different than the rest of the field, they move the needle a little more. Or if you got someone that comes from behind and gets a lot of press because of that, you know, they get a lot of good heat for that. But
I mean, dude, I'm telling you, I still get press kits from guys that, like, they base their value as a pro on how many miles they drive with your logo on their truck.
Yeah.
And they're relating that to impressions, and that impression is worth X amount of dollars. I'm just like, dude.
You're still getting a Cox report from somebody?
Oh, yeah. All the time. And they still think that matters. And I'm just like, dude, I don't care if you, like, I'm glad you have my logo on your stuff. Like, we want that. We're paying for it. But, like, it doesn't sell anything for me.
No.
Really. It just doesn't. But there's still guys that are just really locked into that. And obviously there's a lot of meat on the bones of what even is a professional angler. I mean, I still think that we have one of the only industries where every average Joe thinks that they deserve a sponsorship deal. That's exhausting, but it's part of it.
We could do a whole podcast on the difference between professional staff or promotional staff.
Well, I'll probably get into trouble if I start
pro.
talking about that too much. Yeah, I better keep my mouth shut. But I mean, my favorite emails are still the ones that we get where it's like, hey, I've got 200 followers, and I'm really I know that I can help you sell more baits and grow we just really want to help you grow your brand. I'm like, man, I'm so glad I found you. Like, you can help me grow my brand. It's not that I spend literally every waking moment trying to do that. But you can help me do that? Okay, like, tell me more. It's almost insulting. But, I better keep my mouth shut.
Oh, we could talk for days about the silly emails.
I can only imagine the thousands of messages.
Oh,
I feel bad. Like, Miranda's our marketing manager, and like, I've just selfishly gotten to a point where anything I get, I just forward it to her, and I let her deal with it. And I mean, she is inundated with it. But it's one of those things, honestly, guys. Like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
We've learned, okay, like, we've done everything. And I know that this is a tangent, but like, we've done everything. We've tried to say, hey, like, if we're admitting that what some of this is promotional staff, what we're talking about, like, you're not a professional angler, but like, hey, you do talk about our brand on social media, that's worth a discount, whatever. If we're admitting that we're going to do that, what if we had like kind of a rigorous application and made people go through it? Well, okay, so we do that. You have an application. You're still going to get 500 a day filled out by people.
Yeah.
So then you start thinking, all right, well, maybe it's time to pull that link off the website because we just can't handle the requests. Because when you take the applications, well, then you feel a little bit of obligation to respond in some way. And then you realize if you say no, you're turning away a potential customer. So that feels kind of bad. So then you start thinking, well, maybe we ought to take this down. As soon as you take it down, you just get blown up with emails, the same number of emails. Hey, how do I apply for your pro staff?
Yeah.
Like, you just can't win. Like, there's just no way around it. You're just going to have to field all of it. And it's just exhausting.
And do you still feel that a lot of that, it's like a 3 to 5 year cycle with people?
Oh yeah. Like, as far as the people that are applying for these kinds of things.
Yeah. They're in it. Yeah. They're gung-ho. They do good. I mean, I've seen a lot of them. They do a lot of work. They work their butt off for 3 to 5 years. And then they literally go poof, gone.
Or, well, here's where it usually will end too, is somebody like that's done really good and like you've been given maybe a good discount to, and you deepen their discount over time. Then they want to get paid. And man, ooh, that's tough. Like, that's not really part of it. And then when they realize you're never going to pay them because you just can't, and there's just not enough money to go around. But like, we had a good thing. You were getting stuff that you really liked at a discount, and you were talking about it. Like, we love that. But yeah, I can usually see a signal to the end when they either like want free stuff entirely, or they want to get paid because they're fishing some whatever series events. They want their entry fees paid because maybe they've heard that that's a thing that somebody got one time. Mm-hmm. That's tough, man. Like, I can't justify paying, anybody's $500 Toyota entry fee. Like, can't do it. So that's usually where the cycle ends. But I also feel bad. Like, there are brands and companies that have, I think, had a predatory stance on these kind of people too. It's almost like the model is, if everybody's a pro staffer, nobody's a pro staffer. So let's just make everybody one. And, God, like, if every customer we call a pro staffer and we give them a quote unquote discount based on an artificial full price, how do we lose?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of, it's a predatory model that is definitely out there being used by brands. Um, so I don't know, like I don't love that either. I just wish that more anglers would understand like we're a business trying to make money, and we love to make great baits, and the only way we can do that is when they pay us for those baits.
Yeah.
I feel like too often, especially recently, we have found ourselves apologizing for trying to make money, and that is really irritating. The emails that I know you used to get to, Kurt, like, hey, how come I could go down and I know I can go in my garage and I can get some tire weights for free, and I can pour my own lead jig heads and it's only going to cost me 63 cents. How dare you sell this for $5.99? Like, dude, we're in this to make money.
Yeah.
Like, why are you confused about that? But it's so funny that you feel like you have to apologize for that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, just the simple, like you said, the excise tax thing. People don't pay excise tax. But then the guy down the road, he might be more expensive than you because we have to sell it at distributor.
Yep.
Or we have to sell it at dealer cost. He might actually be he might be making less money. Or
they're
more
definitely
money.
Those garage guys are definitely not making any money.
Yeah.
And that's why they can't ever hire somebody to help them make them and actually make enough. Like, they're losing money almost every jig that they sell if they actually understood how to value their time.
Yeah.
But they can't do that. Then it's not fun anymore. But even like helping anglers understand, like, there's a cost to get a product to you and to be on your store shelf. Like, that it just costs money to make that happen. And so that's part of why it takes money. Like, I don't know. I've been on a little bit annoyed. It seems like the last few years, especially, I kind of call it like the Amazonification of the consumer. Like, they're literally never wrong. If they don't like a product, they think they should just get their money back and keep it, even if they caught 30 fish on it. I hate that. Like, our customers are good folks, like, but they're being trained to, not be good customers, I think. So anyway, I know that was a tangent.
I think it's easy to remember the bad ones, though.
Oh, for sure. I have a file folder in my emails that's only compliments.
Yeah.
So that, like, I can remember that, like, people do actually like us.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the thing. You only hear about the bad.
Oh, man.
You rarely hear about the good.
Well, and just, as anybody knows, like,
never say anything.
Yeah, it takes 10 compliments to make up for one, like, negative comment. Like, that's just how our psyches work, and that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I always try to look at it this way, like, keep track of how many complaints you had for the year. And I had one year, it was like 7.
That's pretty
7.
good.
Yeah, 7. And I did the math, and it was like, compared to how many packaged products I went out the door versus how many complaints, I'm sorry you hate my product and I'll never use it again, but you are a very, 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 very small percentage of the customer base, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to completely change a product just because you don't like it.
When I generally see, like, complaints as real opportunities to form lifelong customers.
Yeah.
I mean, because, God, dude, like Kurt doesn't want me to say this, but, like, every now and then we make mistakes. Look, we've shipped jigs where the weed guards came out. It happens.
Yeah.
I wish I could say that it never happened, but it does. And what I know is if and when it happens, we're going to make it right. And we have an opportunity when we make it right to make somebody realize that we're just real people trying to do the best we can. And, we messed up. And it's an opportunity to, I think, really gain a lot of trust every time we get a complaint.
That's the first thing that I do when I, especially with a friend, somebody that I know in the industry. If I see a flaw in a bait, I was fishing. Not going to mention the brand, but it was an underspin. It was an underspin that I was fishing, and the person that they were using to make this underspin installed something backwards that flawed the bait. So I reached out to the manufacturer, or reached out to the owner
Right.
of the company. I said, "Hey, this is what I noticed." And they said, "Thank you for reaching out. We haven't noticed that happen yet, but we'll make sure that it doesn't happen again." It's not a complaint. It's a, hey, heads up, just so you catch this in the future.
Yeah.
You know? So
I think most people are shocked when, like, what I love when I get a complaint is how shocked those same people are, as angry as a first email can be. When I respond and I say something like, "Man, you're right. Like, we didn't glue that weed guard in properly. Like, we just didn't, and I'm sorry. Send me your address and I'm going to make this right." Like, they're so used to confrontation that when you just like do it the right way, like person to person,
Yeah.
it takes the
hey, they
fire
took
out
care
of
of me.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's what I love.
that's one thing I could go on a tangent about, but man, people don't understand how hard that weed guard is to deal with.
I mean,
That's true.
Yeah.
the way that I always explain like that in particular is I'm like, "Hey, look, like, we're shipping a lot of products, and I'll be honest with you, gluing a weed guard properly is extremely easy to do correctly. It is just as easy to do it incorrectly."
Yeah.
And like I said, like it's we do it in small batches, so it's not a widespread problem, but it is a problem, and it does happen. And when you tell me that your weed guard fell out, I'm not going to accuse you of lying because I know it happens. And so when it does, like, hey, we're going to take care of it. I know, like, for us to have grown the way that we've grown, I had to admit a long time ago that I couldn't sit at the shipping desk and tug on every weed guard.
Yeah.
As much as I want to. It is hard not to. And so I usually try to tell, like, even our employees, like, hey, we do things with excellence. We can't do it to perfection. We used to have a tagline for Nichols. It was handcrafted to perfection. And I realized how stupid that was, because we're just not perfect. Like, we can do it with excellence. And when excellence falls a little bit short, we can have excellent customer service. And, like, that's how we can respond. Otherwise, man, you'll spin yourself in circles trying to make everything perfect. It's too high of a standard. And we're just real people. More than anything, the customers just need to always see, like, we get so many emails where it's clear they just don't see that there's a real person reading the email that they sent. Literally just doing the best they can, trying to make a living. I mean, God, we've been accused of being thieves before because, like, something in the package was missing. Like, whoa. Like, it's just because our shipper, who has a real name, just made a mistake. Like, we are not stealing your money. Like, I promise.
Somebody else got an extra jig. That's what happened.
Yeah, but it's so tough though, man. I just think the bigger, kind of this Amazonification, like, they're set up to think that nobody real is on the other end of the line, and that, real people aren't responsible for this. So we started doing, like, one thing we started doing within the last year that I've seen a lot of good comments about is on, like, the back of some of our packaging, like a spinner bait. We don't do it on small items because there's enough room on the package. On our spinner bait packaging, like for Nichols, there's 2 labels on the back. One of them is the UPC code with a SKU number, and the other one is a made by sticker, and it's got an assembler's picture on it with their signature. And it's just like, man, the more we can make people just realize, like, one of our brand's advantages is that I can literally walk into a room behind my office and see the products being made by a person whose name I know. There's not a lot of other brands that can do that. Right. And when we can show our customers, like, that's happening, it's not made at some factory in some country that you can't pronounce by a person that you don't know, that the owner doesn't know. Like, these are real people. Like, we've seen a lot of success just doing small stuff like that, just to help customers connect the dots. Like, I know it says made in the USA down there, but that means, like, somebody named, Bob is attached to that. He lives in Thomasville. Like, that's how he feeds his kids.
Yep.
So it's just, I don't know.
I used to just about fall out of my chair because I'd get people to call up. Well, you gotta do something. That machine that glues that weed guard in, or that machine that puts that skirt on, or that machine that paints that jig head. That's a person, buddy.
Yeah.
That's they are literally handcrafted.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
yeah, and I mean we hear it all the time, or they just think, oh, you got faulty stock from your factory. And dude, like we are the factory. Like,
yeah,
you know, we didn't get faulty stock. We just made it wrong. Like we'll redo it. So no, it is, man, it runs the gamut. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And then some
Well, let's
products
hear a cool story. I want to hear the Ben Parker story.
Okay, yeah, I can get into that. Okay, I'll give like the moderate version. Like, you know, there's a couple versions of this story, I'd say. So I'll kind of, to tell the Ben Parker story, I'll kind of start back in 2012 is when I took over the Nichols Lures operation. It was a very small company at the time. The Nichols that ran it were really successful in the 90s due to some personal health reasons. Like in the 2000s, they kind of like, you know, they were not as focused on the company. They were focused on some personal health matters for very good reason. But in 2012, we found Nichols online for sale on bizbuysell.com, which is kind of like the eBay for businesses. And it was like, you know, Dave and his wife, small enough that probably me by myself could manage it. Had a real passion for fishing. So, you know, moved to Texas for a few months, learned how to run the business, and moved it back to my hometown here in Thomasville. At the time, one of the things that we loved is they had a really solid existing product line. Their marketing probably needed some work. Their web presence needed some work, and all those things. And, you know, just they needed some fresh energy. But they had really solid, you know, product lines. One of which was a 4 and 5 inch flutter spoon. The Lake Fork flutter spoon. Now, the only gripe I have with Dave is that and I don't know if it's with Dave or somebody else, but Nichols has the Lake Fork flutter spoon, but there's also a Lake Fork trophy tackle flutter spoon. That gets a little confusing. Little bit of a bummer that two competing products share such a close name, but whatever. Sold 4 and 5 inch spoons at the time. Lots of people did, I'd say. Strike King had the sexy spoon. You know, we were just one of several. And it all originated around that Fork area. You know, Joe Spate spoons out there. Like, there's a lot of guys that have been doing it for a long time. Nichols was certainly, I would say, not the first in big flutter spoons, but they were in Jacksonville, Texas. Like, they were near Lake Fork. They were among some of the first people making these 4 and 5 inch flutter spoons. So that was one of our bigger product lines when I started with the company in 2012. I pretty quickly learned, like, and at the time that 5 inch model was like the biggest one. Like, that was the big flutter spoon. There was always a rumor that Joe Spates had one bigger, and they may have at the time, like, but, you know, not much bigger. You know, that 5 inch model was about the biggest one you were going to find. Well, I also learned, you know, the first couple of years, like we talked about, like, stuff that's in Bassmaster magazine is not there by accident. When a pro mentions a product in an article, you know, there's usually a pretty direct tie between them being paid to do so by that brand. Well, I had no money to pay anybody. Like, I had no pro staff. We started some social media stuff because it was just me. But like, we didn't have a budget for that. Probably in 2013, Bassmaster ran a quick article at the back. It was like their 5-minute angler tip. They still have this segment in the magazine. It's near the back, and it's like a very quick 1 or 2 page segment on a new technique where they interview one of their pros. At the time, Ben Parker, it was in a summer article, had been interviewed about spoon fishing. Ben was a guy that had been an Elite Series pro. I think did okay with it, but maybe realized that there was better money in guiding on the Tennessee River. And so I don't think at that time he was still an Elite Series pro, but they interviewed him for the article. He mentioned he used a Nichols Lures 4 and 5 inch flutter spoon. I never heard of the guy, much less met him, or certainly never paid him. Like, he mentioned our product in Bassmaster Magazine. For me, as a new owner of a product, of a tackle company, it was huge. And so I literally like called his guide service phone number to just say thank you, because I could not believe somebody would mention our products for nothing. And spoon sales were actually pretty good for us that summer. And I have to believe part of it was because of that article. So I get on the phone with him, and we just kind of hit it off, I'd say. But in that first conversation, I'll never forget, of course I sent him some free baits. And he was like, man, I'll tell you what, though, like Ben had started, he was one of the early guys in on electronics guiding at the time. He was very good. So like you got to learn from Scott Canterbury. First time I met Ben Parker, we were on Kentucky Lake. I'd never seen side imaging, and he was like educating me. That's really what he started doing for a living after his Elite Series career. He was guiding on Kentucky Lake, anywhere on the Tennessee River, teaching people. He was getting in their boat, teach them how to use their electronics. So we hit it off, and he's like, man, like we catch fish on the 4-inch and 5-inch model, 5-inch especially, but I'll be honest, like this was in Kentucky Lakes in its heyday. It's like, dude, there's mega schools up here. That was before mega school was like even a buzzword. Mm-hmm. And he's like, man, I just am telling you, Brooks, like I see these fish chasing shad so much bigger than 5 inches. And I'm telling you, we need a bigger flutter spoon. If you will make a bigger flutter spoon, I promise you it's going to work. And so I literally remember I was like, I don't know, man, like how big are you talking? Like, what do you mean? It's like, I don't know, like 8 inches. I think, you got 5, but I know these gizzard shad are more like 8 inches long. I'm like, all right, like whatever. Like in my head, I'm kind of like, all right, that's 5, that's 8. Like, I don't know, that doesn't seem too crazy. So I ordered a prototype, and because honestly, Ben had done me such a big favor. Like, I was just willing to run through a wall for the guy. Like, he did me a solid. He really asked for nothing in return. So when he asked if I could make a bigger spoon, I was pretty receptive to it. And so I just said, sure, man, like, let's see what happens. We had a prototype made. The way that they make those prototypes is pretty interesting. They're stamped out of brass. And so to make a prototype, I remember I called my manufacturer of the 5-inch spoons, and I was like, hey, man, like, can we literally take that 5-inch spoon and make it 8 inches and just increase all the proportions the same way? And they were like, okay, yeah, we can do that. And I get the first prototype, and I just didn't realize, like, how much larger proportionally an 8-inch spoon would be. And I mean, I remember I got this thing, it was hand cut out of brass and hand contoured with a rubber mallet. It's like, dude, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, maybe it will catch fish, I don't know, but this thing is stupid. So I probably let it sit on a prototype shelf for a couple months, but Ben kind of kept pestering me. And to just have that first prototype made did not cost a whole lot of money. Well, then, he kept on bothering me. I sent him one of the prototypes that I had in brass. Sure enough, dude started catching fish on it. And so I go up to visit him in Kentucky Lake. Again, we just kind of keep hitting it off, and things are going really well with our two brains working together. So I finally decide, like, all right, man, like, you're telling me you're catching fish like crazy on this thing. I'd had a couple more prototypes made at that time where he maybe had like 3 of them. And he's just sending me pictures where he's just cracking them on Kentucky Lake with it. So I finally had a die made. And that, to me, to make that die was like all the money that I had in the world. At the time, I bet it was $7,000. But for me, that felt like this is all. Like, I'm pushing all my chips in here. And I remember I ordered 500 of them to start with. Because, again, like, I thought it was stupid. I didn't have packaging to put it in. I didn't have a hook to put on it. Because I didn't think that far. This was like one of the first product launches I'd ever done. But I just knew this guy wants them, so I guess I'll get them. So I got in 500 nickel-plated 8-inch spoons. Ben paid me for half of my cost on it, and I gave half of them to him. Well, it just so happened, like, literally the week that he got them in the mail, he got 250 of these spoon blanks, was the FLW event on Kentucky Lake. Well, before I know, like, I still just didn't know enough about the industry. Like, I didn't have relationships with anglers. Ben did.
So before I know it, you see the first day report, and like Randy Haynes is throwing it, and Jason Lambert's throwing it, and Clinton Davis is throwing it, and holy crap, like everybody's throwing it, and they're on video catching fish on it. Like I remember thinking, like Ben told me I'm gonna go give this spoon away to some of my buddies, and I remember thinking, like, dude, it'd be really cool if we got like one picture with somebody catching a fish on a spoon. And then
And now
before
you're
I
like,
know
I
it,
better get my shit together quick.
dude, it was awful. Like, so like by the end of the tournament, like they're breaking this story, and I'll never forget like the front page article on FLW is like the Magnum spoon has landed on Kentucky Lake, and I'm like, oh my god. And like, you know, but again, at the time I'd given away half of what I had, and I only had 500, and so I had 250 spoon blanks with no hooks to put on them and no package to put them in. I remember I had actually priced these to Tackle Warehouse before we shipped them to Ben, and I remember I had put the price at like $19.99 for retail because I mean, you know, they were expensive to make. And I remember Brian, my buyer at Tackle Warehouse, was like, "Yeah, I mean, we'll order like 6s of them." Like, I don't know, like, you know, because I had sent him a picture of it, so they literally ordered 6 of these things. Tackle Warehouse did. Well, by the end of this tournament, like, I remember I had. So by the end of the Sunday, you know, like half of the top 10 is using the spoon. It's all over the internet. People are blowing us up. I had my mother, my father, I'm in there answering the phones. We had 2 phones that we were answering. I had one friend that literally was just set up answering emails. We put them on the website like dummies and started taking pre-orders, even though I didn't have but 250 of them. But I remember thinking like, oh, like maybe we'll sell all 250 of them. and I'll just never forget, like, I remember that Monday, I called my supplier and I was like, that Monday morning, I was like, hey guys, like, we sold those 250. Like, I think I need like 500. And they're like, oh, whoa, like, oh, I don't know if we can do that. You know, what do you mean? Because for them, it was a new product. Like, they had to figure out some new processes to stamp and plate such a large item. They're used to little fishing lures. So I had like all this stuff happening. And by the end of that Monday, I had called them and I'd been like, hey, we got to order 10,000 of these. Like, I mean, it had just quickly escalated. And it was both great and terrible. I mean, the great thing was like all of a sudden people wanted our stuff. The bad thing was I didn't have any. And people did not understand that I did not have any. And so we had like, I mean, dude, we were getting accused of all kind of stuff. Like, you know, I'll never forget the first show I went to and I had some for sale there. And people were like, you know, that's not the one that they had out there on Kentucky Lake. I was like, what do you mean? Like, no, they had some other one. It's like, dude, I'm telling you.
Who else is making it?
Yeah, this is the one I like. We're the only ones on the planet with these. No, they had some other model out there. Okay, dude, whatever. But it took us like, so all that to say, like, probably within the first 6 months, I think we ended up selling like 30,000 of them. And I mean, like I said, it was good, but it was at times like really stressful. Like I remember the problem with an item like that is like finding the package was more difficult than I thought. Like just finding a thing to put it in to sell it was hard. The hook was really challenging. Like, turns out most hook manufacturers don't just keep 3/0 treble hooks on their shelf all the time. And when they do, they keep maybe like 500 of them around because nobody uses 3/0 treble hooks. Well, all of a sudden, I'm like, hey, dude, I was calling every day. I need you to change the order from 10 to 15. I need you to change the order from 15 to 18. And they're like, dude, I don't know when we're going to get these. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, dude, we don't have this many 3/0 treble hooks. So literally the way that the flow would work would be like, for that first 6 months, I hired our first employee who only literally stopped working for us about 3 weeks ago because she's having her third child. So she had been with me for, 14 years. Hired our first employee, but the way it would work is as soon as I would get the blanks in, like I was having to make like, shipments every day, as many as they could stamp, just so I could have something to ship to customers. So they would send me these spoon blanks, and it looked like we were dealing drugs because they'd come wrapped up in paper. And then poor UPS guys bringing us these tiny packages that weigh 60 pounds full of these metal spoons. I'd get the blanks in, and then, gummit, I'd run out of hooks. and then I'd have to wait another 2 weeks to get hooks. And then as soon as I got hooks, me and this other girl, Norma, we would sit in there and we would pump out 2,000 spoons in a day, because all we were doing is we had this big line. My father-in-law was sitting there with the packager. My mom was sitting there with split ring pliers. I'd sit there with the hook. Norm would sit there with the blanks, and we just piped them through. But it was miserable. I mean, it really was. But man, it was a really cool experience, because then it kind of like, we got to see it take off in Japan, which is a pretty unique experience. So like, you know, getting sent like magazines that are in Japanese with our products like all over the cover and stuff, like, man, what a cool experience that was. And, you know, just, you know, so it all went so well, and me and Ben just kind of got to be better buddies. I think if you asked either one of us what our experiences were with each other, we don't have any business relationship anymore. Man, it was really fun, and we worked really, really well together. Over the years, he's really morphed more into a duck guide, actually, and so he's just not really in fishing much anymore. But like, you know, talked to him just a couple weeks ago. Like, man, it was just a really fun thing to be a part of. But you know, then as a brand, it was kind of like all of a sudden, you know, Nichols had been around for a really long time, but it wasn't relevant anymore. Had a lot of really great products, but nobody knew about them. And that big spoon kind of got the eyeballs back on the brand. And unlike maybe some other like flash in a pan brands, we had like all these really high quality legacy products to go along with it. And so it just, you know, kind of was our foot in the door to new generations of guys that, you know, had never heard of a Nichols pulsator spinnerbait. That all of a sudden, oh, like, you guys sell spinnerbaits too, and they're really good, awesome. And so, you know, that was just kind of how it all worked out. And I'd say since then, spoons are like very up and down. We still have years that are just like crazy. We've run through like the striper market can go through some years where they love them. I think one reason I still have such fond memories of it is that it was just like, it was a really simple product idea. Like, not to knock any competitors, but there were no flashing lights or buzzing sounds. There was no gimmick. It's like, this is just a really big piece of flashing metal that fish want to eat. Like, that's it. It was just in your face. Like, that's what this product is. And I think that's one reason it was so fun to work on. We didn't feel like we were taking advantage of anybody. It was like, dude, I don't know why this thing just freaking works. But no, man, it was really fun.
I keep one.
That's a cool story.
I keep one hanging in the garage just because when people come over here, they see that and they're like, "You catch muskie on that?" Because they see all the teeth marks, and I'm like, "No, that's one Dan Chickamauga."
Yeah,
that's all from largemouth.
Well, dude, I still remember like the first time I went up there to see Ben when we had some actual spoons in stock. I'd never caught, like, dude, I sold way more spoons before I ever caught a fish on one.
Yeah,
because my life was hell for a while. I mean, you know, we got our first shipment in, and the next week it blew up. It was literally just the stars aligning. It was pure dumb luck. And so, like, I had never even caught a fish on them, and people are asking me, like, all these questions about how you use it, and I'm like, well, I don't really know. But I remember, too, like, in the early days, Ben would post these pictures. He liked to either float a treble hook or, like, you know, one thing we learned from the Japanese market was these things called stinger hooks, like these floating J hooks. And so Ben starts throwing those on the front, and before I know it, he's throwing like pictures of doubles up. Like, dude, you come on, Ben, like, you're staging that photo. Like, I know you are. So first time I ever went up there fishing with him with the spoon, we went to Pickwick. That was actually my second and third Magnum spoonfish were on the same cast. I had a 7-pounder on one end and about a 2-pounder on the other. And I was like, I can't believe like that actually happens. Because I'm just the guy, like Kurt knows, like, I'm not that good of a fisherman, man. I'm just the guy that's really good at making them. And so it was a really cool thing to like get to figure out for yourself too, and just like, I don't know, man, what a wild time that was. And honestly, I learned so much about the industry in that time. Like, when you start having supply chain troubles because you're like overwhelming the system a little bit, it forces you to like, I learned so much more about manufacturing fishing products in that 6-month stretch than I would have in 10 years without it, because it got to be like, hey, if the supplier tells us they don't have the right brass, like, I'm not the kind of guy that's going to sit around and wait on it. I'm going to start calling brass mills. And before I know it, like I'm negotiating prices on a coil of brass. Like, you know, that's not something I would have known how to do. So it was such a good learning experience too, that forced me to learn and take ownership over like every stage of how stuff was made.
I think you hit that in absolute perfect timing, because that was probably one of the right at the height of the swim bait boom, when people were getting used to throwing big lures. So it wasn't out of the question, you know, it just fit right into that same idea.
It was literally like I said, dude,
There's no hesitation.
Yeah. When I think the 10XD, golly, I don't remember if the 10XD it was right around the same time. I can't remember if it was before or after. But yeah, I remember like, the thing was like, man, even a 6XD seemed pretty big at the time. But then you hold this giant spoon up, or you look at it next to a gizzard shad, and yeah, it's like, dude, that seems like a big crankbait, but these shad are much bigger than that. And so yeah, it's just funny how it for a while, I feel like for like 3 or 4 years, everything was just bigger. There were Magnum Cincos. There were, you know, it was just so funny how like, for a while, that was the trend, was just make stuff really big. And we've definitely gone the opposite way now. It just shows you how trendy everything is.
Now we're putting tentacles on everything.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, you gonna put some tentacles on a spoon?
I mean, hey, you never know. You never know.
I do think there was a 5-6 year period, though, that it seemed like no matter where you went, the bait was big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like even up here, I mean, I was catching fish on 7-inch Senkos on the river.
Yeah, I believe that. And part of I think the big storyline here is just like so much of it lived and died with like a Kentucky lake. I mean, the TVA is just like such an important fishery. And yeah, I mean, around 2017, 2018, like fishing kind of started to suck out there. And, you know, with it went some of that big bait stuff. I mean, you know, just those old school ledge fests where they were just like slugging it out, you know, weren't a thing much anymore. Carp became a problem, you know, pressure became a problem. There's all kind of things. It was inevitable that, you know, just like the dice baits, like stuff is going to move on.
The bubble's going to burst.
Yeah, of course. But it's still like, I mean, it's always in our top 10, top 5 products. Like, it's still something that we sell day in, day out is Magnum spoons. And it's like one of those things like, you know, Ben is just such a good friend. And like, I'm also really thankful how good he was to work with. It's not every day, I think, that in this industry you can get involved with somebody, even from what seems like a simple, you know, royalty deal, that before you know it, man, goes really poorly and people end up in court and people end up with hurt feelings and nobody wins. And I think me and Ben from the very beginning were just kind of like, man, this is fun. Like, let's have fun doing this. And like, I'm really like, one of the things I'm probably most proud of, like I said, is just that like that relationship has always been strong. We try not to burn any bridges. And, you know, I'm really thankful that we had such good folks to work with back then and still do. But yeah, it could have gone a lot of different ways.
That's something that happens in the fishing industry once every 5 to 10 years, right? Like it doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
Not many people get to be the force behind it and experience what that's like.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it was at times miserable. It was real scary. I mean, I remember all of a sudden, even just as a business owner, like I was used to working with like orders of magnitude less money. And then when you start talking about like, I'm about to order 20,000 of these spoons that cost me how much each? Like that was more than my yearly revenue last year. Yeah. And so, you know, that started getting pretty scary and real in a hurry. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't all like the big public impression was that I was just like sitting on a pile of money.
You're just sitting there printing it. You're just turning the crank and the money falls.
And like people just didn't realize how stressful that stuff can really be, especially when you're trying to make it. Like, I think that's what's hard. They didn't realize that I wasn't some big brand with a warehouse full of them already. Like, we're just seeing if it worked, man. Like, I didn't know.
Yeah. That when your supplier has to figure out how to manufacture it after the first 500.
Well, yeah. What was funny is I remember getting a call from our metal plater, like the people that apply the nickel plating to them. And they're like, hey, man, like, we can only plate like 50 a day. And I remember like I quickly was like, well, Craig, that means like, let's do the math here. Like, that ain't going to work. That means we're going to be into like month 18 before we get this first order of them. And, I got people calling. One of the funnier stories real quick is to show you how out of hand it got. I remember my buyer at Tackle Warehouse called me and he was like, hey man, like, I've got some on order. And again, they had ordered 6 before any of this happened. He quickly sent me an order for, like 30. Probably that Tuesday after the Sunday tournament ended, he calls me and he's like, hey, like, how many you got coming? I was like, oh man, I got plenty coming. I think we got like, I don't know, at that point we maybe had like 6,000 coming. I think we got like 6,000 on order, man. Like, they're telling me I'm going to get them in 3-4 weeks. Like, it's going to be fine. Well, I didn't realize the reason he asked me how many I had on order was he could turn around and send me an order for all of them, all of the ones that I had on order. And I was just like, that's not really what I meant. But it was just, that level of ridiculousness that, was hard to navigate for a while. And I mean, I was 22, so it ain't like I knew anything about anything.
Wow.
It was just dumb luck, man. Right place at the right time.
That's early in life to be thrown into something like that.
Yeah, it was fun though. It really was. Like, as bad as it was sometimes, and as many sleepless nights as there were, like waiting on hooks and waiting on blanks to come in, so people would get off my back.
Yeah,
it was a really cool experience.
That's crazy.
That's when you know you're doing it right. When the rest of the industry can't keep up.
I mean,
right?
I guess it didn't seem like a thing I knew I was doing right at first. It seemed like a thing I was boneheaded about and just like, I don't know. They didn't spoon. I don't know what it takes to make one.
I don't think people realize though, like how slim everything gets ran in the industry. Mm-hmm. Like you said about them hooks. I mean, I remember when the guppy head took off. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, you're calling, and it's like, I need 20,000 1/0. I need 20,000 3/0. Now I need another 10,000 1/0. And they're looking at you going, we don't have that programmed for the next 16 months.
Right.
And like with Gamakatsu, people don't realize is like they know what's getting made every day for the next like year and a half in that factory.
At least. Yeah, at least.
Right. So when you start moving the needle on a hook that they weren't expecting, and at the time before, it wasn't just the guppy head. There was a lot of jig heads about that same time with that 604 Gammy. When that thing took off and it went from a 10,000 piece item to a 100,000 piece item, they didn't know what to do.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like it was kind of a good thing. Like it was a bad thing for me, sort of. But I remember even when like the striper spoon thing took off, that was a market that we had a lot of early competitors come in. Like as soon as they saw that we were selling a bunch, we had a ton of knockoffs. It took the bass guys a long time to try to knock us off. Striper guys, it was immediate. But I remember just being like, good luck, man. Like I remember this was probably circa 2019 where the striper thing went kind of on a similar trajectory. And I remember like what those competitors had no clue of is like, dude, I've got like 6 years of experience on a supply chain for this exact item. Good luck finding 5/0 hooks. I bought them all. There's none there. Like you're not gonna find any. So yeah, it can work to your advantage sometimes when you move it like that, but it's still stressful. But yeah, I just remember, Sid at Spro, we've never been able to have a Gamakatsu hook on this because he was like, dude, 3/0 trebles, like. I mean, they literally don't make a treble hook that size.
Nope.
Okay, well, I get it. Not an everyday item.
Yeah, he tried.
So hopefully that was a good enough story for you. I don't know, like, I never feel like I think I'm too long-winded to tell good stories.
No,
that was a great story.
yeah. I always love that
That's
story.
really cool to hear. I had no idea.
I've heard it multiple times. That's like when Adam and I decided to do the podcast. I'm like, I got to get Brooks on to talk about the Ben Parker spoon.
When I still too,
Yeah.
I just feel like I can't take much credit. Like, it was Ben's idea, and he trusted us to make it. Like, I'll often say, like, man, like I said, I'm not a great fisherman. I'm an executor. Like, I like to get things done, and I don't always know. Like, I've always had to rely on other people understanding the sport of fishing more than me. Like, hey man, I'll go out and I'll make it for you better than anybody else, but I need to listen for people to tell me what to make. And I was glad, like, man, it was Ben's idea. I mean, he just trusted us to do it. He could have so easily gone to any other brand. He had connections and friends with all the biggest brands in the industry. I don't know. It was just fortunate.
I think he could have told that story to, gave his opinion to 50 other brands, and not a single one of them would have even rolled the dice
And
on it.
that could be true. Because like I said, I mean, I can't believe I did sometimes. Like, I think a lot about this. Number one, if I looked at the Nichols, the company that we purchased in 2012, if I looked at it today, no way do I buy it. Like, no way.
Yeah.
And then I think about that product. If somebody brought me something like that today, I think I'd laugh at them.
Yeah.
And that sucks. I was just too dumb to know any better. And I hate that I maybe, don't have that anymore. I think being naive, like, helped me out. Because I didn't know any better.
Being
But I
willing
do
to take
think
a
about that
chance
often.
on flash and pan.
Yeah. But yeah, I know if the financials of Nichols came across my desk today, I'd be like, yeah, no, man, that's a muddy pit. We're passing on that. Oh man.
I don't know that spoon though.
It's funny.
I think it's easy to dismiss that spoon. Like, if you think about it in your situation, you're like, but you got to think about what was going on at the time. It's really easy just to be like, it's big, or it's this, or you don't need it. It's not going to be any better, and just dismiss it. But actually, once you actually see it, once you fish it once you see the shad swimming around and you see that spoon in the water, you're like, oh, this is a no-brainer.
The first time he showed it to me in a pool,
Yeah,
that's when I really was like, oh, like, yeah, there probably is something here.
yeah,
I was not a big swim bait guy, so I didn't have a lot of experience understanding that. Yeah, like, man, we'll catch fish this big on that spoon. It's just one of those things that's hard to understand until you've done it. But yeah, when he threw it in the pool for the first time, that was when I realized, like, there is actually something to this. So I don't know.
it's fun to catch on it.
What's weird is out here, it has not become a real thing.
There are still
West.
pockets of the country where I know that, like, it can blow up again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like, that's what happened to this New Jersey
I know
area.
some guys who throw it here and there, but it's not like a big deal. It's not everybody has caught on to it here. Out in the desert lakes, I can see it becoming a much bigger deal because they do have the gizzards out there. We don't have gizzards, in Southern California. Actually, in most of California, we don't have the gizzards. So I can see it blowing up in the desert lakes for sure. But out here, I've got 2 or 3 of them because, that potential, I see the potential in it. Yeah. But it hasn't really become a thing out here.
It's funny, like, whenever people can't quite believe that you catch fish on it, I'm like, look, like we talked about, it's a big flashy piece of metal. Turns out if you get fish in a group and they're competitively feeding, they're probably going to eat it. Like, and like, if they're in 6 feet of water, if they're in 30 feet of water, it's a big flashy piece of metal. Fish are predators. They're probably going to eat it. Like it's just that simple. So yeah, it's got so many applications that we don't know about. Even, God, dude, it's hard for me to believe we're 12 years, 13 years removed from when we released it. And I know there are still applications that we've never considered for it, like species that we've never thought about catching on it.
Do you see anybody throwing it in saltwater?
So yeah, that was one. That was another one that was kind of miserable, but it took off in like New York, New Jersey, in saltwater for stripers, like big stripers.
For striper.
So I've got some really cool pictures of guys like holding giant stripers with the Statue of Liberty in the background, like stuff like that, with a spoon hanging out of its mouth.
That's
like
cool.
that was cool. And it's funny every time like Ben goes on a tuna trip, he's like, dude, I know I'm gonna catch a tuna on this thing. I don't know that he ever has, but you got to feel like there's got to be ways to do this stuff. Like we just haven't figured it out yet.
It might move a little too slow for tuna, but
well, part of it too is like, yeah, for such a wide profile, it's really pretty lightweight when you start talking about like real depth.
yes.
I mean, I remember we fished it before on Lake Kiowee. No, it wasn't Kiowee. It was Jocassee. And it was like 60 feet of water, and we could see fish suspended hanging out. I know people have claimed this before. Everybody wants to be the first to have done a thing. Ben was at least the first person I ever saw. I can say that. Like, I have no idea if he was the first person to do it. He split ran two of them together, back to back. And he called it the double trouble. And this was like in 2015 or 14 or something. But two of those 8-inch spoons together, now you got 5 ounces of metal with the same profile, and you've got some clacking on it because they're kind of like, hitting each other. And man, you could get that thing down pretty quick in 60 feet. Like that was the way to go. Like I said, I know there's other creative ways. It's just going to take the right. I've noticed like every different market that we've kind of gotten into, it takes just the right guy that's thinking a little bit differently and tells people about it. So it takes. It can't be me because nobody cares if I tell them I think they can catch fish in lake trout somewhere on this thing they've never heard of. Like it just takes somebody really creative on the ground there that that's trying something new.
Have you ever heard of a guy catching a calico bass on the West Coast on it?
Not that I can recall. I mean, surely it's happened, but
I'm sure.
I can't think of an email that I've gotten that said that.
I can see that being a real thing because you know what a surface iron is?
Mm-mm.
Surface iron. Picture I described this. I think it was in the last episode, Kurt. Right?
Yeah, you described.
There's a theme here.
It's like. No, we were talking about.
He's not good at describing it.
How we got around. We were talking about muskie or something
give him
like
a chance. This is his second go around, so. It's
like picture a 7-inch deep cup spoon, but that cupped part is completely solid and it's made out of resin.
Okay.
And it weighs about 5 inches, and it's almost shaped like a torpedo.
Huh,
kind of. It's tapered on both ends, about the same, and you can launch the thing. You could spool a 300 size reel with it.
Golly.
It's so heavy. And they catch the crap out of the calicos on it. So I can see the calico thing really. So they're throwing them for the calico bass, but they're also fishing for yellowtail. They're throwing them for tuna too. Yellowfin tuna, bluefin tuna. So like mint green is like a real big color. Blues and whites, stuff like that. But they make them in all kinds of crazy colors, like Dorado pattern, yellow with the blue speckles. They make them in all kinds of crazy colors. But the calico thing I can see really blowing up with the Ben Parker spoon because it's even bigger. They don't make a surface iron that big.
I mean, like I said, it really is. It's about finding, like, for us, we've tried to start thinking about, we've seen, I think in years past, I would ignore these little regional markets because I just didn't think they would go anywhere. When we saw the amount of business we could do in like a New Jersey, New York in a really short amount of time, we realized like we got to start figuring this stuff out. But it takes relationships, it takes, like we said, it's like we've thought about how do we in a purposeful way try to form those relationships? How do we find a key guy in some of these unique markets that's willing to give it a try, see if they can catch them on it? If they can't, that's fine. Like, we get it. So yeah, if you know anybody, let me know. We make crazy colors.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, the striper thing was like chartreuses and whites and pinks. It's like, dude, we gotta paint these chartreuse. We gotta paint it was 9. Those were 9-inchers they were wanting. Got to do a 9-inch flutter spoon in straight yellow chartreuse. Like, this thing's pretty friggin' ugly. But man, chartreuse was always the best seller. So you just never know.
And that
Crazy.
it just, to me, just that spoon particularly, when it falls, it just has that. I don't care what it is dying. It looks like a fish dying.
Well, and that, I think I told you, Kurt, like that was really an accident.
Yeah, you told me about it. I wasn't going to bring it up. I didn't know if you wanted to reveal that.
Oh, I don't. Again, like most of this is pure dumb luck. Like I cannot take credit for any of it. But when we originally made the proportional change, I remember I told him, hey, and this was true. One of the things that Ben really likes about the 5-inch spoon is that when you stroke that spoon, it's got enough cup that it really gives a lot of like pull. It's when you're stroking that spoon, you want to feel that thump. And
It's thumping, yeah.
Yeah, so we were like, one of the things that's going to be important is proportionally sizing up the cup on this bigger spoon. Well, the way that they made the prototype, it's kind of like anything else where like it's easier to add contour than it is to take it out. And so they told me, hey, like we know you said you want this to match proportionally the contour in the 5-incher, but we can always add more. We cannot take it out. So we're starting with it pretty flat. And it's okay when you call us and you need to change it and make it deeper. We can always make it deeper. And so, believe it or not, I got the first prototype, and I thought for sure it was too flat. Sent it to Ben, and he was like, dude, don't change anything. That flatter size, like on a smaller spoon, it wouldn't quite work right. It would do some stupid stuff. One thing that 5-inch spoon does is it cradles like really tightly on the way down. But what we realized is when you add so much surface area and weight, when it was a little bit flatter like that, it didn't cradle all the time, which is what we thought we wanted. It would cradle, and then it would dart, and then it would kind of catch it and cradle, and then it would fall over here. It was way more erratic because it was flatter than we thought it would be. I mean, we thought it was going to be way more cupped. But it turned out it was just like a happy accident where the first prototype, like, thankfully, they recommended, hey, we need to start flatter here. And it turned out in the design, like, that was really a much better fall than we ever thought it would be. And it did kind of give you, like, I know there's some spoons on the market that always say that there's like back up away from you, but like that's what that 8-incher does. If you let that thing go, it swoops out away from you. That's just how the spoon falls. Like you don't really, there are some things you can do to make it do that more on purpose. But like just by its nature of its shape, it's going to go away from you. And we just didn't know that. If we had cupped it more, it would have had like this, but I don't know that it would have done as well. Part of what people liked, I think what drove fish crazy was, man, that thing was coming out of nowhere at them. And it was either I got to eat this thing or get out of the way. So now the downside is like, it'd be more interesting now with live scope. I fished with it with live scope a few times because it can dart like that. You can miss a school with it. Like you can throw it out there and it'll go in a direction you didn't think it was going to go, and you've missed the whole school. So that can happen. That's a downside of it. But in all, it was just a happy accident again. So
sometimes it just works.
Dude, more dumb luck.
Yeah.
Better lucky than good.
For sure.
Well, what do you?
Well, are we good?
I think we covered everything.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey,
I think it's
come
going
on
to be a really good episode.
anytime you have time, you just let me know. We'll get you on.
Dude, I like talking fishing, man, and like honestly, like I never get to catch up with you, Kurt. So like this is really fun. My wife is probably going to strangle me because I didn't help put the kids to bed tonight, but you know what? It's been a while. I felt like I had to
Hey.
catch up with Kurt. So
You're not alone.
yeah, I mean, it's okay. I'll see him in the morning. But no, thank you guys for having me, man. It's been a real blast, and yeah, let's definitely do this again.
Yeah,
For
absolutely.
sure.
Cool.
We want to hear some
Thanks,
more
fellas.
stories.
I got plenty
All
of
right.
them. As long, dude, my wife is the only one that doesn't care about my BS stories anymore, so I still like to tell them.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brooks.
All right. Peace.